Hello and welcome back. We are in a new section. In this section, we're going to talk about character strings. You've probably heard me say the word string quite a bit throughout the class, and you may have been a little confused. A string is really just a word. It's something enclosed in double quotes. We're going to talk about how we can store strings in character arrays. So up until this point, we're pretty familiar with a single character, the char data type, or the char data type, however you want to pronounce it. We know what that is, but we haven't really learned about words. To assign a single character to a char variable, the character is enclosed within a pair of single quotation marks. All right, we're familiar with this. We've learned all about this. In this example, plus sign equals plus inside single quotes. The important thing there is the single quotes. You've also learned that there is a distinction made between single quotes and double quotes. So if you put plus sign variable and you assign it something in double quotes, and plus sign is of type char, that's not going to work because you can only assign single characters to the char data type. A string constant or a string literal is a sequence of characters or symbols between a pair of double quotes. So now double quotes are going to come into play. Anything between these double quotes is interpreted by the compiler as a string. And so really it's just, it can be alphanumeric characters, it can be special characters, but they usually make up words. You can kind of think of it as text. You can have spaces, but anything in double quotes is a string literal. Every time you have displayed a message using the printf function, we have defined the message as a string constant. Remember printf, the first argument, we put some text inside there and we have some format specifiers. That is a string constant. You also hear the term string literal. It's the same thing. So when we say printf, this is a string, everything in between that, those double quotes, is a string constant. And we can put it on one or two lines. You also notice that you can have print statements that have escape sequences, \n. Now this third one's pretty cool, which I'll explain in a second. But the main point is you have to understand the difference between single quotes and double quotes, right? And what's inside there. With the double quotes, you have strings. With the single quotes, you have characters. There are two types of constants. For this third example, this printf where we have the for and then we have a backslash and then a single quote, if you want to actually display a single quote as output, you have to escape it. And you can escape special characters by using the backslash. So in the third example, it's actually going to print out for, double quote, you write, and then another double quote. So the compiler interprets an explicit double quote without a preceding backslash as a string delimiter, right? Every other time you use a double quote, it's beginning and ending of a string. But what if you wanted to display it? Then you have to just put the backslash in front of it. And it will tell the compiler, hey, this is not actually ending the string. It's something that we want to display or something we want to use as that character. Also, you have to use the escape sequence if you want to do the backslash as well, because the backslash is an escape sequence. So when you see the backslash, you're actually displaying that backslash in a printf function. If you see it anywhere else, you're assigning the backslash to a variable or however it's used. But a backslash itself, followed by another backslash, will escape the backslash string. And again, a backslash in a string always signals the start of an escape sequence. So one by itself is not going to display. These are special characters. So when you're in double quotes, you may see the backslashes to escape special characters and even the backslash itself. Here's how a string is in memory. A string in memory is each single character is represented by a bit here. And so if you have a string called this is a string, you're going to see it where the space has something in memory. And also you should notice at the end that \0. That's the null terminator, which we're going to talk about. But for the second string, again, you see everything that's in memory. Even the \n, which represents a new line, is in memory. And then for you write, you'll notice the quote is in memory. But the backslash isn't, because the backslash is delimiting the quote. It's escaping the quote. So this is how it looks in memory. And you should notice that the string in memory always has at least one more byte for that \0, which is the null character. And that's what I want to talk about, is this null character. It's a special character with the code value 0. It's added to the end of each string so that the compiler knows where it ends. and also when you run it. This character is known as the null character, and you don't just put a 0 in it, you can put a \0. And that's what was in this previous slide, right, at the very end. And it can be anywhere actually in memory, and depending on where it is in memory, a function is going to go and look until it sees that \0, and it may display it or may manipulate it if you're using different string functions. It's very important, that null character. A string is always terminated by a null character. So the length of a string is always 1 greater than the number of characters in the string. And this is going to become very important when we use character arrays and we specify the size of the array. The array size is always going to have to be 1 more than how many characters you want to store because of this null character. We also have a concept of null that we haven't really talked about in too much detail. It usually comes into play when we talk about pointers. But do not confuse the null character with the null keyword. So there's a null keyword in one of the include headers that you can use. And this is a symbol that represents a memory address that doesn't reference anything. So you use it when you use pointers. A null character is just a string terminator. We'll talk more about null when we talk about pointers, but make sure you understand the distinction between null character and the null keyword. You can add a \0 character to the end of a string explicitly, and this will create 2 strings. And I'll show you how to do this when we talk about defining character arrays. Here's an example with the null terminator. We have a printf here, and we say the character and then the \0, which terminates a string. So what's going to happen is if you compile and run this program, the output that you're going to get is the first line is going to be the character, and then the \o, there's going to be it's going to end it, and only the first part of the string is going to be displayed. There's going to be no more output because print thinks that it's the end of the string. So it just prints out the character. Output is going to end after those first 2 words because the function stops outputting once it reaches the null character. So the second \0 if at the end of the string, so even though you don't see a \0 here right before the ending double quote, right after string dot, there's still one there, but it never gets reached. So there's an implicit null terminator at the end of the string in the printf, so it knows where to end. And if you add another one, it's only going to display up to that first one. So the first null terminator that's found in the character sequence always marks the end of the string. So understand these null characters. This was just a quick overview to describe what a string is and understand that strings are in double quotes. And I also want to describe the null character. In the next lecture, we'll understand what character strings are in terms of how you can create this one type of variable to store strings. Thank you.